everyone, it's me, Jessica P. with Meta Employment Services. I first just wanted to say thank you to everyone who was able to join me for my live stream, my very first one, which was preparing for the interview. It is archived here on Facebook, so if you want to check it out, I absolutely recommend it. Also, thank you for everyone who was able to stay with me through the technical difficulties that we had last time. I hope that we don't have the same technical difficulties this time. However, I do know that there's a comment section, so if at any point you can't hear me or something's happening, please just leave a comment and we'll try to work through it together. And also, I just hope that everybody's doing well during this difficult time. It has a way of escaping us. However, with the quarantine more and more, it seems like the days are melting together. Day becomes night and night becomes day. And although I think we're all doing our very best, it's not always an easy circumstance to stay in isolation. It's hard staying home. It's hard to be limited in your contact. And it's hard to not have the regularity, stability, and commitment that having a schedule outside the house creates. Many of us are eating out of boredom. Many of us aren't showering as much. Some of us are showering way too much just to fill in the time. And lots of us are watching Netflix until the wee hours of the morning. So when you're in this realm of all these possibilities and non-possibilities, how do we gain the motivation to maintain a schedule and still complete the things that are required of us? And that's the topic for today's live stream. And much like my last live stream, I'm going to list off in detail some helpful tips and considerations for when you're trying to stay motivated, or rather, motivated while at home. So number one is attempt to stick to your usual routine. This can be incredibly difficult, but waking up consistently at the same time, especially if you're someone who has a work routine, and completing your morning on schedule will trigger your brain and your body to go, oh yeah, I know this, I'm familiar with this, I know what to expect next. And if it's a weekday, you should also attempt to get dressed. I still get dressed every weekday, and this is because, again, it triggers my brain and my body to go, oh yeah, I'm going to have to do things today. I'm going to have to accomplish things today. And the days that I do decide to wear my pajamas all day, I don't do as much. I feel cozy, I feel warm, I feel fuzzy, and I associate these clothes with rest and comfort. And this doesn't mean that if you work in the food industry that you should be wearing your uniform every day, or in a business environment that requires a suit. Rather, just wear something that is clean and something that you don't normally sleep in. And if you are working from home, try to choose a space that is not your bedroom to complete your work. I imagine many of us have been tempted, I know I certainly have, to complete our work in our bedroom. Why not? It's the absolute comfiest place to be. However, choosing the bedroom as your workspace makes you more likely to feel unmotivated, geared towards relaxation, and it promotes personal time. Pick a specific place and set up, preferably somewhere that can be semi-permanent to you, so you're not having to unpack, reset up, pack it back in. Try to choose somewhere semi-permanent. And if you have objects that are available to you that remind you of your employer, why not have them at your work home setup? If you keep a stress ball on your desk at work, maybe consider having one at home. And don't hesitate to ask your employer for what you need. If you're employed by a company or an organization that supports your work from home setup, request the equipment as soon as you know that you need it. You need to inform your employer what you're going to need to get your job done. This could be anything like a chair, a desk, a computer, or software, or whatever else. Lots of us are tempted not to make requests of our employers, but you don't want a lack of equipment or tools to deter you from doing your job to the best of your ability, or simply not at all. Set ground rules for the people in your space. So if you have a partner, if you have children, if you have roommates, they need clear rules about what they can and cannot do during your work hours. Additionally, just because you're home and you may be able to look after pets or let service people in or receive packages or prep for dinner, the other people in the home shouldn't assume that you're going to do it by default. If this is how you divide up your domestic labor, this is absolutely okay, but simply taking it all on because others expect you to may make you feel taken advantage of, and your productivity will suffer for it. Schedule breaks. Know your company's policy on breaks and when to take them. If you're self-employed, try to give yourself adequate time away from your phone and computer. 1 lunch hour and 2 15-minute breaks is the standard for most full-time employees. When you take your breaks, try to take them in their entirety. Don't shortchange yourself on these breaks, especially your lunch hour. If you come back to your desk after 40 minutes, walk away for the next 20. Set a timer on your phone. Do not shorten your breaks unless there's an emergency at work. It can be so easy to convince ourselves to muscle through breaks. However, studies show that employees are more productive when they take mental or body breaks. You can come back feeling refreshed and refocused, and your mind and body in work are going to thank you for it. Take sick days. When you're not well, take the sick time you need. However, if sick days are a part of your compensation package, definitely take advantage of this time, within reason. I'm not saying be sick every time that there's something going on at work. However, not taking these is like throwing away money. Remember, this doesn't always have to be an emergency. This could be used as maintenance for your mental and emotional well-being. Becoming burnt out will result in many more inconveniences and possibly more absences than just taking one day for you. Make sure that you're looking for training opportunities. When you're not in the office, you might miss out on training opportunities and professional development that would have otherwise been offered to you in person. Make sure that your employer knows that you're interested in continued learning. And speaking of training, you don't necessarily have to be working from home to take advantage of some quarantine opportunities. There are lots of universities and colleges that are offering online courses and tutoring sessions either for free or at a minimal cost. You can sign up for this and it can help you form a schedule to help pass your time, or you can add it into your professional portfolio, or it can be a little extra something for your resume once quarantine is over. Now that we've gone through some of these helpful lists of things situational things that will help us stay motivated, I want to talk about how we're going to look at our tasks. I think lots of us are finding that we have so many tasks, especially working from home, because you have your work, you may have pets to look after, you may have children to look after, or just sitting inside your home, you tend to notice things about your home that you didn't otherwise notice before that you now want to get done. So when you have this mass of tasks and goals that you want to complete, one of the best ways to make this more palatable and gain your motivation is to assess these tasks and prioritize these tasks. And one of the ways that we can do this is with the 4 Ds. So highest priority is going to be do. Second highest priority is decide, delegate, and delete. So number 1, highest priority. These are going to be things that are important and time sensitive. This is your do section. These are the things at the top of your list to be completed. And this might be something like a project at work. Decide. This is important, but it's not urgent. Decide whether this has to happen now or if you have things that take higher priority, such as the do section of your 4 Ds. Third enlisted priority is delegate. These are things that are urgent, but they're not super important. So give these tasks to somebody else in the home if they're available. These could be things like doing the dishes or finishing the laundry. Delete. These are items that are not time sensitive and they're not important. These could be things like painting your nails or checking social media. And once you've decided on your tasks and exactly what is in your do section, I want to just go through a couple of helpful tips of how to get you started, how to make it more palatable, how to get through these tasks. And the first one I want to talk to you about is the 5-second rule. And this is primarily based on self-monitoring, but this is listening to your gut and your instinct and having the control and the capacity to follow through on the things you said you would. I will finish that assignment because I said I would. I will clean my house because I said I would. And this is taking the opportunity when it arises to follow your needs and wants prior to your brain reasoning to you as to why you shouldn't. So our brains have this really nasty habit that when we know we have to, when you feel it in your gut and you go, yeah, I know I need to do that, that if our brain anticipates that it's going to be tedious or unpleasant or difficult, that then our brain will try to reason us out of why we shouldn't do that. So has anybody ever tried to wake up early to exercise? I know I certainly have. My alarm goes off at 5 a.m. and I go, oh, yeah, I need to get that done. But then my brain goes, yeah, but, and you're trying to deter that yeah, but. Yeah, but you know, like it's going to be a long day for you. You deserve the extra sleep. You could always do it tomorrow. So before your brain has that opportunity, you say 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I'm going to do it. And it sounds a little silly, but it's actually surprisingly effective. When you go to complete a task that seems like it's large and overwhelming, you can use chunking or breaking things down into smaller tasks. As an example, suppose you have a huge report. It's just enormous. It's a 30, 40, 50-page report, and it's due in the imminent future. And you know that you need to be doing it, but every time you go to think about it, you viscerally feel ill just considering it. So instead of focusing on your project, you start dyeing your hair because everybody has their quarantine hair right now, binge watching Netflix, or even scrubbing your kitchen top to bottom just to avoid this task. A big part of the procrastination here is how you're looking at this report or this project. As it stands, you see this one huge, overwhelming, daunting task. So instead, break it down into smaller chunks. Maybe you make a commitment. I am going to write at least 40 minutes a night until this is due. That sounds a lot more achievable than a 30 to 50-page report. This is chunking. The distraction list. This is a really cool tool. What you can do is you can either have a pen or a paper, or for me, I'm living the millennial life, so I like to use the notes function on my phone. But when I go to set out to do a routine, if I get distracted by anything, any internal distractor, if I'm thinking of something that isn't relevant, if I'm remembering something, if I have an emotion, I can write it down in my notes and then go back to my task. And when I finish my task, I can then go back and see if any of that was relevant. So as an example, I could have been working and gone, oh, yeah, my electricity bill. I haven't paid my electricity bill. Write it down, go back to your task. And then when your task is finished, you can go back and go, oh, yeah, I really do have to deal with that electricity bill. Something that Nick Wignall writes about, and I think that it's a really cool idea, is the bumpy wagon plan. And he talks a lot about the old saying that failing to plan is planning to fail. But he also indicates that there's a second part to this, which is failing to plan to fail is just as dangerous. So in other words, although it increases your chances of failure by not planning at all, also not planning to have any bumps or slip-ups will increase your chances of overall failure. So save yourself the frustration of slip-ups and have a plan of what you're going to do. And Nick says that these following things are things that you should include within your bumpy wagon plan. So avoid negative self-talk at all costs. In the long run, beating yourself up isn't going to help you. It's just going to lead to excessive guilt, shame, frustration, and nobody works under those conditions. Text your accountability buddy and own up to your slip up. So you're going to want to have a conversation with whoever you choose to have as your accountability buddy, which is exactly what it sounds like. It's somebody to hold you accountable, to further encourage you and motivate you when you slip up. Have a conversation with them prior and discuss exactly what you're expecting from them when you do slip up, because you don't want that to impact your ability to stay motivated or your relationship with that person. Some people, when they slip up, they need someone who's empathetic. Some people need somebody who's stern. Have that conversation prior to a slip up. Avoid over-interpreting failure. So acknowledge that sometimes you're going to fail and that this doesn't necessarily mean anything. However, if you consistently slip up in the exact same way, do some reflection. In a non-judgmental way, try to understand what is going on and what is making it difficult for you to complete your task. Remember, approach this from a place of self-kindness. Beating yourself up, it's not going to help you. So instead of saying, oh, what is wrong with me? Just say, oh, some part of this plan isn't working out just right. I need to figure out what it is and how can I fix it? And remember, reward yourself. After a long day of work or accomplishing tasks you set out to do for the day, it's important to take care of yourself and be proud of what you've accomplished. The reward can consist of anything from a socially distanced walk to a favorite dessert, a favorite meal, taking a bath, or it could even just be self-praise. It could be going, good job, girl, you killed it today. I'm so happy with you. And although these things may not seem like they're grand or they might seem a little silly, they allow you some time to unwind and relax so you don't feel burnt out. Also leading us to our next thing, which I think is a good segue, talking about feeling burnt out, is that one of the biggest components currently, I think, that is a roadblock for people staying motivated, and I think we can all agree, is stress. Stress is at an all-time high right now, and it's perfectly reasonable to be incurring high levels of stress during a global pandemic. But we need to consider what is an acceptable level of stress and what goes beyond our threshold. If your stress is too elevated, it can impact your ability for day-to-day functioning. One of the ways to discern if your stress has gone far past your threshold is to be able to self-analyze and know what things are present in you when your stress becomes too much. So like I know for me personally, I get really poor sleep quality and my memory begins to fail. When I begin to recognize that people are offering me the same information over and over again and I'm not retaining it, I know I need to prioritize my stress levels. So once you've identified that your stress levels are far beyond your threshold, take a moment to yourself to be isolated in your thoughts and your intentions and give yourself some clarity as to what your emotional triggers are. Once you know this, it could be something like, I'm doing the dishes all the time. I really need to communicate with somebody and say, hey, can you do the dishes 2 nights a week? Or something to that ability. I'm going to discuss possible ways that you can limit stress. I am going to talk about that one a little bit more in detail with communicating expectations with the people in your home, because I think that it's really hard to stay with the same people all the time, and it's also a very difficult and complicated topic to approach. But remember, when you need to address something with somebody in your home to help limit your stress or to help stay motivated, you should navigate this from a place of not only consideration and compassion for your own feelings and your own quarantine experience, but also for the other person that you live with. So this could be something like, I'm identifying that we both need our own space and moments of silence. Is there a way that we can communicate with each other when this is needed without hurting each other's feelings? Other ways that you can use to relax are take a time out, practice yoga, listen to music, eat well-balanced meals, get enough sleep. Accept that you cannot control everything. That one's a lot easier said than done. Have a good laugh. A laugh goes a long, long way. Find something that you know will lift your spirits, a favorite comedy, a favorite comedian, or for me personally, I really like the If I Fits, I Sits videos on YouTube. And another really important one is limit your alcohol and your caffeine. This is really hard when everything's at your fingertips at home, but this can aggravate your anxiety and can actually trigger panic attacks. And the number one way to reduce your stress is to stay connected, talk to someone, have a meaningful conversation with someone. So ways that you can have a meaningful connection could be things like celebrating a milestone with a virtual hangout, keeping up with your workout buddy, be extra neighborly, volunteer from afar, make some fun future plans with pals, host a virtual game night. And then the last thing I want to address with you guys before I leave you today is mitigate realistic expectations. Do your best instead of aiming for perfection, which we all know is impossible, and just be proud of however close you get. No one is realistically expecting you to complete your work or function your day-to-day life at the same capacity as you did prior to the quarantine. Give yourself credit for the small successes and use these successes to motivate you to continue as opposed to becoming overwhelmed. And please remember, everyone is existing on varying degrees of stress and with varying degrees of coping mechanisms. There is no need to compare yourself with others, like that one human being we all know who has claimed to learn 2 different languages, mastered the art of mindfulness, and written an entirely successful blog based on homemaking and raising children during their time in quarantine. Instead, focus on you. Each of you are awesome, and you don't have to be some ridiculously productive superhuman during quarantine to prove it. Give yourself lots of love and lots of compassion, not only to you, but the people around you, and stay safe. Happy Tuesday, guys.